get some have some of this. We gonna get right back into it. I'm outside. Oh, with the birds. I'm outside with the birds. Isn't it lovely? And I love hearing the birds chirp. Let's see here. They've been chirping all day. I was outside earlier too. Okay. All right. So we ended at, it feels wonderful out here. All right, so we ended at, currently we are reading, I'm about to do the Willie Lynch Untold Story reading. We're going to talk about that. Once we finish that discussion, after discussion, proposals. Okay? All right. And we may not do it all in one day. We may be breaking it down in segments, baby. Don't forget, I start 30 money spells on June 1st. Okay. Let's see here. Slavery fueled trade in molasses, sugar, textiles, and spices, while providing vast amounts of unpaid labor for cotton production across southern plantations. All right. The system itself was complex, involving calculated negotiations between European traders and African leaders. Traders needed to understand supply and demand, both of enslaved people and of ships, as well as the fluctuating value of goods used in exchange. Currency was rarely used. Instead, transactions involved tobacco, rum, I don't know if I can use that word. Okay. Arms, we're going to call them arms. Iron, copper, and brass goods. These details are extensively documented in traders' records. Regardless of the economic gains produced by the slave trade, the burden placed on African people was immense. The psychological damage and physical atrocities inflated during that time and their lasting effects remain among the most severe injustices in human history. February 1999, Kashif Malik Hassam L. William Lynch, The Untold Story, 1712. This speech is attributed to a white slave owner, William Lynch, allegedly delivered on the banks of the James River in 1712. Thank you. Welcome to the channels, darling. Welcome, David Henry Santos Faria. Welcome, Dilam Shirashingi. Appreciate you coming in, darlings. Welcome to the live. This is the formatted reading version. Gentlemen, I greet you here on the banks of the... Oh, and we won't be using the N-word. We're going to replace it with ninja, okay? First, I greet you here on the banks of the James River in the year of our Lord, 1719. So that don't have nothing to do with the Lord. First, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I understand that you are experiencing difficulty with your slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with both ancient and modern methods of control. If properly applied, I still don't understand this whole control thing. If properly applied and its infatuation with it, my methods would be envied even by ancient Rome. Observation. As my boat traveled along the James River, named for our illustrious king, I observed enough to know that your problems are not unique. While the Romans lined their highways with crucified bodies, you used trees and ropes. I even passed the body of a slave hanging from a tree not far from here. However, such methods are inefficient. You are losing valuable property through executions. At the same time, you face uprisings, escapes, neglected crops, fires, and destruction of livestock. You already know your problems. I'm not here to repeat them. I'm here to solve them. The method. In this bag, I carry a method for controlling your black slaves. If implemented correctly, it will maintain control for at least 300 years. The method is simple and can be used by any member of your household. It is based on differences. I identify differences among the slaves and amplify them. I use fear, distrust, and envy as tools of control. Key differences to exploit. Consider the following differences: age, color or shade, intelligence, size, what gender they are, plantation status, living location, valley, hill, north, south, etc., hair texture, height. These differences must be intensified and weaponized. Remember, distrust is stronger than trust. Envy is stronger than admiration. Once conditioned, the enslaved population will perpetrate this division themselves for generations. Divide and control. You must set old against young, dark skin against light skin, male against female. At the same time, white overseers must distrust all black people. Enslaved people must be conditioned to trust only you. If done consistently within 1 year, the system will sustain itself. Let's take a pause. Hello, Keymon6. Thank you, darling. I went to go see her in February for her new book, 107 Days. It was a sold-out show and fabulous, and she sold lots of books, but her line was packed before the show and after the show for those books. All right. If anybody's in the chat not adding to it any substance, we completely ignore them. Let's keep going. That way we can still see them show their arse. Okay, let's see. Let's Make a Slave by the Black Arcade Liberation Library, 1970 to formatted excerpt. Slaveholders studied human behavior carefully, not out of compassion, but for control and profit. They understood that they were not dealing with objects, but with people, and therefore needed to control both mind and behavior. Oh, so y'all realize we're not subhuman, that y'all just got control issues. Okay. They watched constantly for signs of resistance. Silence, withdrawal, or changes in mood were all treated as warning signs. As Frederick Douglass observed, enslavers became highly skilled at reading the emotional and mental state of enslaved people. The process described it as one of the breaking independence and creating dependency. The comparison is repeatedly made between enslaved people and animals, particularly horses, to illustrate how systems of control were designed. The goal: keep the body, control the mind, and eliminate the will to resist. Keep the body. Magic mirror. That's the moon card. Control the mind. That's the Hierophant. Master of the mind, upside down. All these cards are upside down. and eliminate the will to resist. Will card, that is the Emperor card. Loco, upside down. So we got the magic mirror, master of the head, and the Emperor, Loco. Key principles. People in their natural state are independent and therefore seen as uncontrollable. Control requires breaking that independence. Special focus is placed on women and children for long-term control. You can't even get here unless it's through a vaginal of a woman, but yet you want to place on them long-term control, but can't exist without them. Make that make sense. Division and hierarchies here are internationally created. Language and identity are reshaped. Psychological conditioning reinforces physical control. A central idea is that psychological strategy. The central idea is that long-term control comes from destroying trust, reversing family roles, creating fear-based dependency, conditioning future generations early. The text argues that once this system is established, it becomes self-sustaining unless disrupted by awareness or change. Language control. Language is described, hallelujah, we're using our throat chakra today, is described as a powerful tool. Controlling language helps control thought, identity, and movement within society. By erasing original language and replacing it, individuals become further disconnected from their origins and easier to control. Let's talk about language. I'm going to tell you how important language is. At one point, I wanted to study hieroglyphics. So I bought a book on hieroglyphics from Amazon to see how they form the letters. And well, I had a few things on my altar that had hieroglyphics on them, and I was like, oh, okay. So you can only use the language that you have either been indoctrinated with, unless you take the time to expand your language beyond the indoctrination that you have been taught. And then when you do that, things start to open up in different ways for you to express what you want to say, how you want to say it, best ways to use it, and certain niches or groups or audiences that you can use the newfound information that you have learned with. That means expanding oneself in being welcome, in welcoming new knowledge that you are unfamiliar with. And I say that because a lot of people are still asleep in their thoughts, in their identity. All right, that was deep. Now, when you erase original language and replacing it, individuals become further disconnected from their origins and easier to control. Statement on control and dependency. The one constant, the other dying, we keep this ninja constant, for we may replace the mule with another tool. Both are tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself, nor without the other. Well, that is a lie. Yeah, we didn't came a long way since then. Language as a tool of control. With crossbreeding complete and separation from original identity established, the next step is to eliminate the mother tongue of both the enslaved person and the animal, and replace it with a new language tied to their imposed roles. Language is a powerful institution. It reaches the heart of people. The more a foreigner understands the language of another society, the more easily they can move within it and understand its structure. Language and power. If an outsider becomes an enemy, their knowledge of language makes a society more vulnerable to infiltration or cultural domination. I thought we had Christian people over us. Right. Incorrect. So, because I don't remember anything about love wanting to have infiltration and cultural domination. Okay. Language and power is what we just discussed. If an enslaved person fully understands the language of the enslaver, they gain awareness. They begin to recognize meaning, intention, and contradiction. At that point, deception becomes difficult. It does. You know, I love that I started to study tarot, because I could not figure out until we were reading, I believe it was Ezekiel 10. And I don't study regular tarot. All the tarot I've studied has been Orishas or African American. But when we were going through Ezekiel, they have stuff hidden. They try to take all the magic out the Bible, baby, but it's full. It's in here. In Ezekiel, it has the Wheel of Fortune card. Chapter 10, verse 7. They talk a lot about wheels. We got a lot of writing going on. Oh, this is a horrible chapter. Let's see. Okay, my internet cut out again. Ezekiel 1 through 28. And Ezekiel 10, 16. Has the Wheel of Fortune cards. In tarot, we call it the market card because it's not really a Wheel of Fortune. It's based upon opportunities that are provided from situations that you have created. All right. Got my books over here trying to fly with the wind. But yeah, there's a lot that's not there in that Bible that once you start learning certain languages like Hebrew, and you start getting more into the Kabbalah, you start understanding how different system works, then it's truly eye-opening, okay? Reading between the lines of what these controlling men have created. Example of meaning and awareness. If an enslaved person is to work for our crops and fully understands the language, they may question the meaning of our. They may realize it does not truly include them. That awareness alone threatens the system because it shifts perception from obedience to understanding. Maintaining control through language. Because of this, language must be carefully constructed. If an enslaved person gains full linguistic understanding, they may begin to engage as an equal man to man in the logic of this system. That inequality represents a breakdown of control. Language and value systems. Words alone are only a small part of the language. Language also carries values. Every society operates through interconnected value systems, and language acts as the bridge connecting them. Without these bridges, conflicting values could lead to instability or even conflict within the society. Example of conditioning through environment. If a person is placed in poor conditions and conditioned to accept them as normal, they may come to value that condition. Their concerns may remain limited within that environment. However, if they are exposed through language or experience to a higher standard of living, their expectations change. At that point, dissatisfaction begins, and dissatisfaction leads to questioning. Real consequences reflected in the Willie Lynch narrative. Institutionalized racial hierarchies. Systems developed during slavery created long-term hierarchies based on race and skin color, light versus darker skin divisions, often called colorism, became embedded in social structures and perceptions. Hello, darling. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for being here. Divide and conquer social dynamics. Slave systems often encourage division among enslaved people by age, gender, role, or status. Internal community divisions, distrust with marginalized groups, competition shaped by limited access to resources. Psychological conditioning and internalized oppression. Enslavement relied heavily on psychological control, not just physical force. Over time, this contributed to internalized inferiority narratives, fear-based behavior patterns, learned distrust, and survival strategies passed across generations. Baby, generations. mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, children, future children, people, great great grandma, great great grandfather, folks before them, generations. Just like this war that's going on is going to affect generations of family timelines. Okay. This unnecessary war, where they never start the war, but have been warred against for a very long time. Anyway, disruption of family structures. Slavery frequently separated families and altered traditional roles. Long-term effects include instability in family units, shift in gender roles under pressure, generational trauma tied to forced separation, language suppression and cultural erasure. Enslaved Africans were often stripped of native languages and cultural practices. You know, the religions that they demonize that I study now, like voodoo. This led to loss of direct cultural continuity, creation of new hybrid cultures, resilient but born under oppression, gaps in historical identity and lineage, economic exploitation and wealth gaps. The system of unpaid labor built enormous wealth for slave-holding societies. The lazy people built enormous wealth for slave-holding societies. The people who didn't want to do their own work. Its legacy is still visible in racial wealth gaps, unequal access to land, capital, and opportunity, structural economic equality. Except we got a whole different playing field now. You got a boss, maybe you're a slave. Okay. Yeah, they just redesigned the whole thing to include everyone. Normalization of dehumanization. Slavery required treating people as property. That legacy contributed to stereotyping and bias, justifications for unequal treatment, systems that historically undervalued Black lives. Legal and political inequality. After slavery ended, many systems evolved. Segregation laws to maintain control. Examples include Jim Crow laws, voter suppression practices, unequal enforcement of laws. You do know that time records everything, and that karma does truly exist. Generational trauma. The psychological and physical violence of slavery didn't end with emancipation. Its effects can persist through family narratives and survival behaviors, community-level stress and resilient patterns, ongoing disparities in health and well-being, resistance, resilience, and cultural strength. It's important not to frame this history only in terms of harm. Out of these conditions also came strong community networks, cultural innovation, music, language, spirituality, intellectual and political movements for justice. Figures like Frederick Douglass and later leaders challenged and dismantled these systems. Even though the Willie Lynch letter isn't historically verified, it reflects real strategies of control used during slavery. And those strategies had lasting social, psychological, and economic consequences that we can still trace today. When one group is oppressed, it does not stay isolated. The system that allows that oppression shapes everyone inside it, including those who think they are free. Whew, that was a lot. So the next time, we're going to take a few deep breaths, my love. Congratulations, you've made it this far through the mutings, through the glitches that we have had in between. We have made it to dissect everything for the discussion so that we can move on to the next portion. Now that I have gotten through that portion, I will see you Sunday, and we are going to discuss on how this connects to a book I love called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, which I've already written up. Yes, we're going to get down to the meat and the nitty-gritty of it. I thank you so much again for hanging tough with me, loves. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and Saturday and Sunday, which is when I will see you next. Mwah.